Yeah, so talk a little about Downeyville.
Yeah, my grandmother, who lived in Downeyville, we went up to, my brothers and I went up to Downeyville every summer after school. As soon as school was out, my mother and dad would drive us up. Well, at first, we didn't have cars. We went up on the train up to Nevada City or Grass Valley, and then narrow gauge to Nevada City, and then we'd take a stagecoach. There was a mail. It was actually a mail truck up to Downeyville, and my grandmother lived on a three-story house there on the main street that goes out, and had a big lawn in front and a big backyard down to the river, the Yuba River. My grandmother, her name was Kate, and she was my mother's mother, and she was really a fun person to be with. She was very happy person, and we used to take walks along the river in the evening after dinner, and she'd tell me the names of all the trees and the bushes and the flowers and all that sort of thing. And we had a swimming hole up around the bend on the road to Sierra City, down in the river where the river bend, and they put sacks across to kind of dam it up a little. And we learned to swim in that. When you graduated, you'd swim across the river to the other side. Mm-hmm. And we did mostly underwater swimming. We'd dive for rocks because the water was so clear and so beautiful. And then we'd lie out the rocks and sun ourselves and get my beginning of my later skin cancers, lying out in the sun with no sunscreen on. And Downeyville was a very busy little town, and it had the stagecoach came in every night with the mail, and I'd go down. My brothers and I'd go down to the post office, which is across the bridge, and wait. And they'd put them in the mailboxes, and it had a what do you call those things?
Like a safe.
Like a safe.
Yeah.
And we'd get the mail out and take it home. And across the street from the mail where the mail office was the St. Charles Hotel, and it had chairs out in front and big locust trees, and the men would sit there, and they put their feet up on the trees, and sit there and watch everybody come in. And my Uncle Lawrence would be one of them sitting there, and my step-grandfather, I'm sure he was too. Next door to my grandmother lived her brother, Uncle Dan. He was married to Uncle Dan Sullivan, and he was married to Amelia, who was a Costa, which is a big family in Downeyville. And every 4th of July they had races for the children. We had, my brothers and I would go in a 3-legged race. They put a sack over your 2 inside legs, you run on this. And Tony Lavazola was the fellow that was sort of, they didn't have a mayor, but he was like the mayor of Downeyville. And he'd have a sack across his middle, and he'd have silver dollars. And if you won, you'd get a silver dollar. He just would give you a silver dollar. Wow. I wish I kept some of those, because we did win a couple of them. And then they had a town hall, and they'd have a big dance that night. I danced with my grandfather and my uncle and the butcher's son, and we learned to dance. Whatever they did, they had an orchestra, and it would play till midnight, and then they'd pass the hat, and they'd all put in money, and it'd play on to another hour. And all the families came. They had benches all around the edge, and kids would come, and they'd be sleeping on the benches and that sort of thing. And they had a night watchman, my brothers and I slept out in a porch, outdoor porch. You could see the Milky Way and every star because it was so dark. And the night watchman came all around town. And I don't know what he was watching for, but he would walk around with his lantern. And they didn't have electricity there. I remember when it came in, PG&E came in, and my grandmother used to have irons that they would have a handle that go on the iron. She put it on the stove, and it was always a wood stove. They didn't have any gas. And she'd take the iron, and then she'd run it on paraffin, and then she'd do the ironing. And she ironed everything. She ironed pillowcases and sheets,
Is that right?
everything was ironed. And she had a vegetable garden on the side of the house. She grew, I could remember carrots and string beans and radishes and lettuce and corn. But she didn't have much corn because my Uncle Larry would go down. My Uncle Larry never married. He was there, lived there too. And he would go down to Goodyear's Bar to get golden bantam corn. And he'd come home and husk it and put it in water, and we'd eat it right away. It was delicious. And so we had a good time in Downeyville. I loved Downeyville. It was a lot of fun. And my mother and dad would come up sometimes, and my grandmother had sisters. Her brother lived next door. Then she had Aunt Mame and Aunt Nell and Aunt Jo. Maybe an Aunt Jo, yeah. And all these, and they'd come up 4th of July. There'd be a big family get-together. My uncle, my aunt, my Aunt Alta and her husband would come, and the kids. They had 3 children, and the 3rd floor was, in the summertime, was the downstairs, the big dining room and a big kitchen, and they had a big long dining room table, and all these people, I just remember a lot of people, and they had homemade wine. You stepped out downstairs from the outside and into the wall of what was upstairs would be a cave, that was a cool place.
Yeah.
And they had their wine in there. And of course, I didn't realize that they were all drinking wine because they were all very friendly. But we had a great time. And my Uncle Larry would go out fishing. And at that time, you could have 25 trout. You could catch 25 trout, and he'd take my uncle and my dad with him, and he could have 25 for all of them. And they'd come back with 75 fish. And my grandmother had all these frying pans on the wooden coal stove, and I'd help her, we'd put flour on the fish, and then she'd fry them, and it kept the heads on. The eyes would turn kind of white, and there'd be just big platters of fish. And it was a lot of fun. We enjoyed that all. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And,
That's great.
Okay, that's Downeyville.
That's Downeyville. That's really cool.
I think we went to Downeyville until I was in high school. Even in high school, I went to Downeyville because I had one year we took 2 of my June Smith and Olita Selna, my 2 friends. We took them up with they stayed for a week, I think. And anyway, it was a lot of fun. We had a good time. I always loved Downeyville.
No childhood romances?
Hmm?
No romances there? Did you have any romances?
Oh, I knew the family that ran the Mountain Messenger. It wasn't a romance, but Bill Ayers he went to Cal, and we knew each other, and his sister was a friend. I became a friend of hers, and he had a younger brother. And we used to go to dances, the four of us, his brother and his sister and him, and he would go and I'd go. And we'd drive over to, Sierra Valley, to Portola or someplace over there. I don't remember where, but we'd dance. And we'd dance until we wouldn't come home till almost dawn.
Wow.
And drive all the way up that winding and up there. I can't imagine. And we used to go on picnics. We'd go up to Tahoe, and I had a good time with them up there. That was when we were in college. And then I knew him at Berkeley, and he would invite me he belonged to the Masons, and they'd have dances, and I'd dance with him.
Now, would your brothers come along with you, or they were?
Pardon?
Would your brothers be there as well? Up there?
No. Bob would be up. No, they weren't there then at all. No. Bill left to become a priest right out of high school.
Oh.
So he was gone. And
Yeah.
Bob was younger than I. Maybe Bob was... No, he wouldn't come because he had jobs that he did in the summer. I didn't have a job.
Oh.
And, yeah. So, but I remember with Bob, he and his buddy bought a car together, and they wanted to learn to dance, and so they wanted me to take them. So there was a big ballroom downtown San Francisco at the corner of Van Ness and I forget what it was called, but it was a big ballroom, and they had live bands there, and they had one of those big circles with a lot of mirrors on it with the lights.
Yeah, like a disco ball or something.
And Bud Dummel was his buddy, and I danced with them. And Bob caught on real fast, but Bud had 2 left feet. He was hard to teach, but I had a good time with him. That was fun. I knew Bob more than I knew Bill, because Bill left in high school, and he was a year ahead of me. And, I didn't really know him very well. I mean, he was my brother, and he was there all the time. But I did more things with Bob. We learned to smoke together. We'd steal cigarettes and smoke. He's 4 years younger than I, so I let him bad. Then he took up photography. That was a big hobby with him. And he'd pose me. I have pictures of me sitting, looking down at, with a candle lighting, but he'd put grease on my face so it'd shine. Things like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so we had a good time, Bob and I, because he was younger enough that when growing up, I played with him and made him do what I wanted him to do, and that sort of thing. But he was a good kid. I can't think of anything else right now.
No, that's good. That's good for now.